to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 466, and today's date is September 12th, 2014, and the title of this episode is U.S. Syrian Rebels and U.S. ISIS Agree on Non-Aggression Pact. Before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Tomorrow's news brief will be canceled. I will be traveling. I'll be on the road. I will not be back until late Sunday, so the next report will be on Monday. So I just want to let everyone know that this is happening over the weekend. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, Australia seems to be following in the footsteps of the United States. They're out there saying they have a job recovery. They added 121,000 employees, but they're part-time. And of course, as we know here in the United States, the BLS, the U.S. government, likes to take these numbers and say, oh, look, we have a job recovery, and half of those jobs could be part-time. And especially when those people are coming from their full-time jobs and they can't find anything out there, they resort to part-time jobs, but they're saying that, yeah, they're still working, so it still counts as a full-time job, which is really misleading because they're not making the same money, they're not getting the benefits, so it really isn't a job recovery. And again, you're not getting that quality job. You're just getting anything just to make ends meet and pay as whatever bills you have until you find that real job that you really are looking for. And for a lot of people, it's not happening. They cannot find that same type of job that they had, or they're finding the same type, but the pay is so much lower than what they were making. Now, it looks like Italy and Spain, their debts are reaching record highs right now. Italy's government debt rose to a record 2.169 trillion euros in July from 2.168. Spain total government debt amounted to a record 1.01 trillion euros in the second quarter, and this is up from 995.9 billion euros. So we can see right now the debt keeps going up. More austerity is imposed on the people, unemployment continually rises, and it just gets worse and worse as time goes on. Now, what's very interesting here in the United States, the government, the Fed, have been pushing recovery as hard as they possibly can. They're just telling us that we are in an amazing recovery right now, and they're trying to convince everyone, and it seems like it is working. And what I noticed is they did this during the last false flag event in August. If I go back to June and July of 2013 and into August, what we see is that consumer confidence hit an all-time high during the false flag event, because they thought this was going to go forward. They thought back and then they were going to have a special event to cover up the collapse, but of course that fell apart. And as soon as it fell apart, do you know the consumer confidence completely dropped and plummeted? We're seeing the same exact thing right now. In July, August, we're seeing a run-up of consumer confidence, and they're doing this on purpose because they're ready to push this event as hard as they possibly can. And why are they making everyone believe there's a recovery? Because they want it to look like another country, another group caused the economic collapse, and they want to show that they were pushing and helping the recovery along here, and they don't want to be held responsible. And this is exactly what they're doing, and it is the exact same pattern as last year. Now, of course, they're out there and they're saying that, oh, retail sales, they're amazing, everything looks great. But if you take out auto, retail sales have declined. And if you remove it, it seems that sales slipped to its lowest since January. And of course, the auto sales are being used to pump up the entire retail sales market. And how are they doing this? Well, if you have a heartbeat, you get the auto loan. And what's very interesting, we're seeing a very big shift right now, which is occurring amongst consumers. They used to be buying, all the other goods that they need, and now it's shifting over to autos, student loans, and health care. This is what's pumping up the market right now. Why? Because this is what they can control. All the other retail market, all the other channels and everything else completely declining right now. So we're seeing a very, very big shift in what people are actually purchasing. And of course, with auto loans, you go and your car needs repair. You bring it into the gas station, to the repair shop, and they tell you it's going to cost $1,500 to repair. Of course, you don't have that money. You go to the new car dealership, and they'll lease you a car with no money down, no money out of your own pocket. You have terrible credit. It doesn't matter. All you have to do is make this payment each month. And most of the people are going for it. They're taking out the auto loans. They're dumping their older cars. And again, what's happening? We're seeing the rise of delinquencies. We're seeing the rise of people who are late on their payments, and they are being visited by the repo man. So we can see that all of this has been shifted to keep everything going and keeping the illusion that we are in a recovery. And the stores that are getting hit the hardest are, of course, the retail outlets like Walmart, Target, because now they're paying higher premiums, they're paying their student loans, and now they have a car payment. So, of course, with that all taken care of, they have a very small amount of money to pay in Target, Walmart, and all the clothing shops and everything else. And this is why we're seeing a huge decline. This is why stores are closing. I mean, Radio Shack is looking around for money. It looks like they are imploding on themselves. I see Olive Garden, their sales for restaurants continually declining, not getting better at all. And we're seeing this a lot all over the place. Now, China, Russia, and Mongolia, they're going to create an economic corridor. Chinese president on Thursday proposed to construct an economic corridor linking China, Mongolia, and Russia. The Chinese president on Thursday said the three neighbors can dovetail Beijing's Silk Road Economic Belt Initiative with Russia's Transcontinental Rail Plan and Mongolia's Prairie Road Program to jointly build a China-Mongolia-Russia economic corridor. This could turn Mongolia into a transit corridor linking the Chinese and Russian economies. And we can see right now Mongolia has a geographical expanse bigger than Japan, France, Spain put together. And again, China, Russia making deals all over the place, beefing up their economies, making trade deals, and it is non-stop. When we look at the United States, when we look at the UK, when we look at the Eurozone, all they're talking about is war, attacking, going to war, attacking, provoking, pointing fingers. That's all we see. Now, a couple of reports ago, I said that Obama was not going to pass the immigration executive order because of the elections. Well, that seems to be true. He's waiting for after the elections because the Homeland Security Chief Jay Johnson, he is out there and he is saying that, the president didn't want to add fuel to an already burning fire of conservative anger over illegal immigration before this November's critical midterm elections. So he said that he's going to wait because he realized if he did this ahead of time, the people would be very angry. So what does this really tell us? They're not doing it for the people. They're doing it for the bankers and the corporations. If they're worried about the votes by pushing this executive order through, this tells us the people do not want it whatsoever. And they're worried about the people voting the Democrats back in there. So we can see right now, most of these government officials do nothing for the people. They do it all for the bankers and the corporations. Oh, and themselves, of course. Now, we know in West Africa, Ebola is really wreaking havoc on the economy, on the country. There are more and more people being reported getting sick, and we know that the U.S. is bringing in military to, help out the situation. But it looks like Sierra Leone is not looking at the United States and asking for help. They're actually going to Russia and asking for help. They're looking to bring them in and have technical personal assistance and other medical people come into Sierra Leone and help with the Ebola outbreak. Now, here in the United States, it seems like a company, which is Lakeland Industries, is going to pretty much provide the U.S. State Department with about 160,000 suits made for Ebola. The U.S. State Department put out a bid to get 160,000 suits. Now, this should tell us something. Something is happening, either one or two things here. Either they're shipping this down to West Africa to help them out, or the government officials here in the United States are taking precautions because they're going to push the agenda a little bit further. Now, Martin Armstrong is out there, and he's warning that Spain is moving towards a civil war. And we understand that the Spanish government has put in orders for riot gear because they're expecting a huge amount of protest and civil unrest come this fall. And the protests are mainly directed against against new austerity, tax increases, extremely high youth unemployment, homelessness following the bursting of the housing bubble, and against restrictive policies such as the recent bill to ban abortions. And he's saying that Spain could be moving towards a civil war, and we see that Spain is getting ready for this. Even the human rights organization Amnesty International has expressed concern over the arming of the police. The police are there to protect the government, not the people. That is dangerous position that sets the stage for a civil war. Well, we can see the same thing here in the United States. DHS and the militarized police, who are they set up to protect? The people or the government? A recipe for disaster. Now, Russia has signed a contract with Nigeria on military helicopter deliveries. It looks like Nigeria and Russia are getting closer and closer together, while Nigeria is telling the United States, do not come into our country. We do not need your help whatsoever with Boko Haram or Ebola. And of course, we also know that China has a huge amount of interest inside of Nigeria. Now, China is looking to seek an expansion of strategic ties with Iran. And it looks like they're pushing this forward, and they want to become closer together. And we can see that bonds are starting to form between Iran, Syria, Russia, China, and they're starting to separate from the U.S. And we can see more and more nations are moving over to the BRIC umbrella right here and making deals bypassing the U.S. dollar. Now, we understand that there are more sanctions placed on Russia, and of course Russia is saying that, this is not going to hurt us, it's going to hurt Europe, it's going to hurt the United States, and right now German enterprises are sustaining serious losses due to the sanctions war between the West and Russia, and also against the background of the general situation caused by the Ukraine crisis. According to the publication, German companies have seen a €3 billion reduction in their profits in Russia over the first 6 months of this year. So we can see already countries like Spain, Poland, no one is buying the agricultural products from these countries. It is hurting these countries. A lot of these farmers are hurting right now, and if they don't have savings, they just completely go out of business. And of course, there is a ceasefire right now, and there's peace, but again, Europe and the United States decided to place sanctions on Russia. And again, this is provoking. That's all the United States is doing. And Russia has come out, and they are saying that they might have to retaliate and pretty much put sanctions on or ban imports of Western cars, clothes into Russia. This could be the second part of their ban that they place, and they're saying this would hurt Europe and the United States quite a bit. And again, this whole thing is to start the main war. Of course, we start off with an economic war, and this is what we've been seeing now for the last couple of years, and it's really starting to ramp up now, and we're starting to see sanctions on Russia and Russia putting bans, and it is an economic war, and this is going to definitely lead to world war, and we are already in kind of World War III, but they just haven't announced the big shot, bang, explosion, whatever you like to call it, but it is coming. We are headed in that direction. Now, the Organization for Security and Cooperation is out there, and they have not seen military hardware or Russian troops move into Ukraine. They're still reporting, yes, they see helicopters, drones flying on the borders, but they have not crossed. And since the ceasefire, they see less of that. So right now, everything is holding steady right now. I am still worried about Ukraine, the puppet regime there, because we're starting to realize they've been siphoning gas off that was headed towards Poland, and they've been using it to fill up their underground reserve tanks there because they were short. And we can see right now that they are definitely prepping for something really, really big. They've been beefing up their military troops. They've been bringing in military assets from NATO and the United States, and we can see they are getting ready for something big. And of course, they're going to say Russia started it. They're going to use some type of false flag where they do something and they say Russia did it. They'll have no proof. They won't show any type of satellite images, or they will show satellite images, and it'll be those blurry black and white, photoshopped, colored in things that they usually give us, and we know those are satellite images from the 70s, so we don't really need to see those. We need to see the full color, HD, crisp, 3D images that satellites really produce these days. Now, it seems like there's a little bit of a confusion with the Obama administration, and Kerry is out there saying that the U.S. is not at war with the Islamic State whatsoever. Kerry said Thursday that the U.S. strategy to fight ISIL included many different things that one doesn't think of normally in context of war. What we are doing is engaging in a very significant counterterrorism operation, Kerry said. It is going to go on for some period of time. If somebody wants to think about it as being a war with ISIL, they can do so, but the fact is it's a major counterterrorism operation that will have many different moving parts. And then we had Susan Rice out there saying, well, if you don't have boots on the ground, then it's really not considered war. So we're not going to have boots on the ground, so it's not war. And then all of a sudden, the Obama administration came out, and the White House press briefing press Secretary Josh Earnest said, yes, ISIS has declared war on the world, and the President Obama is leading an international coalition. So, yeah, we are at war with ISIL. So, very confusing messages. But let me just read the definition of war. A state or period of fighting between countries or groups. A situation in which people or groups compete with or fight against each other. An organized effort by a government or other large organization to stop or defeat something that is viewed as dangerous or bad. So, yeah, it's going to be a war. It doesn't matter if you have boots on the ground. You can call it counterterrorism. You can call it kinetic. You can say we have a lot of moving parts, but there's bombs, there's bullets, people are dying. It's war. There's no other way to look at it, and I really think sometimes they think the American people are so stupid that they wouldn't understand what war is, and they can use this other terminology, and of course, in business, I call it management babble. I get this is government babble, where they try to use all these different type of words to not say the thing they really need to say. And really, when it comes down to it, yeah, we're at war, and that's that. Now, it looks like the UK is going to be building 3 new Middle East bases to battle the Islamic State. 3 British military bases could be set up in the Persian Gulf to fight the Islamic State. The bases could be part of a larger U.S.-led offensive to battle militants in Iraq and Syria. And this is exactly why this is being set up, because they know eventually it's going to be boots on the ground. They know eventually it's going to lead to World War III. So they're just getting everything prepared right now. It is also believed the Royal Navy would like to see the port in Bahrain expanded to accommodate more sailors and bigger warships. So you can see from all of this that they are moving military assets, personnel, setting up bases to get ready for World War III, and every nation is getting ready to do this. And you can see eventually all of them will be dragged into this, and this is where we'll get World War III. Now, we understand that the United States is trying to put together a coalition. It's not going that well. The bigger players are saying, yeah, I don't know if we're in it yet. Let's see if we have an event, and if they do attack us with some type of event, yeah, then we're in. But right now, Kerry is saying that he's not really looking to have Iran in the upcoming meeting in Paris on how to defeat the Islamic State militant group. Kerry says Iran should not be there given its support for President Assad in his 3-year war against rebels. And he's saying that, yeah, Syria and Iran really shouldn't be at this meeting. We're going to exclude them. Of course they are, because later on, what is going to happen? Eventually, the war will be with Syria, and then all of a sudden, because of the bilateral support agreement between Iran and Syria, Iran will join in, and then the United States and the UK and Israel all can go to war to get into Iran, because this is the prize. And of course, we do have a problem because China and Russia are waiting on the other side, and they will sit back for a little while, see how it goes. But when things start to get worse and they start losing, eventually what's going to happen is they're going to step in. Not all at once. They'll start supplying more military assets. They'll bring in some more. Then they'll bring in troops, and they'll start getting ramped up. And the United States will say we're at war, and the whole thing will start going into World War III. Now, the Syrian rebel fighters right now are saying that airstrikes won't help. And the reason why they won't help is because they've been on the battlefield for a very long time, and airstrikes from the Syrian Air Force doesn't work with them, because they realize that they can hide in caves, they can hide in different places, and the Syrian forces from Assad do the same thing. So it's really not going to really help. They know where to hide. So eventually, we're going to need boots on the ground. So you can see where they're starting to go with this, and they're starting to push this where eventually there will be boots on the ground. Now, it seems like they're trying to implicate Assad with ISIS right now. And of course, as we move forward, they have to do one or two things here. They have to make it look like the Islamic State is working with Assad. They also have to say that Assad was part of the event that occurs here in the United States, or they have to make it look like Syria is a part of something where they attack the United States, so they can say, now we can go into Syria. And they're saying that ISIS also reportedly sells oil through middlemen to the Assad regime in Syria, and they're saying that Assad has been the middleman in helping them sell oil. He's also purchasing oil from them, and they're trying to make all these links. They're also trying to use the chlorine gas. They're doing everything they possibly can to make it look like Assad is part of the terrorist problem, and they're going to continually do this, and they're not going to stop. Now, we understand we have the Free Syrian Army, and then we have the Islamic State. One time they were all in one, and then the Islamic State separated itself, because the Free Syrian Army is what the United States supports, and the Islamic State is that rogue terrorist organization. But what's very interesting is that the Free Syrian Army and the Islamic State are moving closer and closer together. But of course, you don't see this on the corporate news. You don't hear it from the president. You don't hear it from anybody. But Syrian rebels and the Islamic jihadists have agreed on a non-aggression pact for the first time, that they won't fight each other right now. How interesting. Under the deal, the two parties will respect a truce until a final solution is found, and they promise not to attack each other because they consider the principal enemy to be Assad. Syria's armed opposition initially welcomed jihadists, including ISIS members, in their fight against Assad. So they were one time invited in, and then they were separated, and now they're just going to work together. And you can see how this is forming. And of course, the corporate media, the government, they want us to believe that this is a separate terrorist organization. But really what's going to happen is they're going to use this with the Free Syrian Army. They're trying to get them more weapons. They're trying to get the Islamic State more weapons through this. And of course, in the corporate media, they're trying to make it like it's humanitarian aid. That's where the $500 million is going to go. And we know that's not where this money's going whatsoever. Now, they're already reporting that the Islamic State, as we know, has anti-aircraft and anti-tank weapons, and they're saying that they're starting to use them now on U.S. fighter planes, and they're saying that they have seen them shot off from the ground. One plane seems to have gotten hit or something, and it had to be flown to Turkey. And they're saying, and the officials said, the U.S. military has determined that the Islamic State deployed an unspecified number of anti-aircraft artillery to counter Western airstrikes in northern Iraq. So they're already making the case that since they have the anti-aircraft weapons, the bombing runs might not work inside of Syria. Okay, now as we know, CISA and CISPA are waiting in Congress. They want to vote. They want this to pass. This is what they want to happen. The president already has issued executive orders that completely support CISA or CISPA. And we've seen a rash of cyber attacks on Target, Neiman Marcus, Home Depot. We see the nude photos of stars, and they're trying to say that this is a huge, huge problem. And all of a sudden, this was fanned up out of nowhere while these bills are right in place to be voted on. And right now, the White House calls cyber attacks grave national security danger. The White House on Tuesday said cyber attacks pose a grave threat to U.S. national security and urged Congress to pass new laws to strengthen the nation's digital infrastructure. The cyber threats pose one of the greatest national security dangers of the United States faces, ranging from vulnerabilities in our critical infrastructure to identity theft and credit card information theft. So we can see right now, we should pass new laws. Hey, we just happen to have two, CISA or CISPA. Pick one. And you can see this is exactly what they did. They did it with the Patriot Act. They were doing it with the gun bill. They just happened to have one. Dianne Feinstein pulled it out of her purse and said, I have a bill here. Wow, let's put this into action. And you can see every time they do this, it's already set up. They're all ready to go. Now, DHS is saying that EMP threat is very much on their radar screen, and they're saying that this is a very, very big concern of theirs because it's involved a physical and cyber threats against the power infrastructure, where if they do get their hands on some type of nuclear capability, or if another country like China, North Korea, or Russia explodes something over the country, it could take out the grid, and they're very, very concerned about this. Now, the Yazidi leaders are out there, and they're saying that radical jihadist group from the Islamic State could strike anywhere in the world because they have thousands of suicide bombers standing by. And, of course, they're using the Yazidi people, and, they're testifying, saying that, there was one girl saying that she was captured, she escaped. It reminds me of the Kuwait incubators where the babies were being killed, and of course that turned out to be fake, phony, and false, and it seems like they're going down the same exact path, trying to convince us that there's suicide bombers all over the place, and it is from the Islamic State, and as we know, this is completely being set up right now. Now, the next thing that's on the horizon that they're telling us about, and you can see how this is all playing into the false flag event. The Islamic State jihadists planning encryption-protected cyber caliphate so they can carry out hacking attacks on the West. The Islamic State boasting of its plans to create a sophisticated cyber army, plans to use cyber caliphate to launch attacks on banks and governments. Islamic State militants are planning the creation of a cyber caliphate protected by their own encryption software, so the NSA cannot break into this. The Pentagon will not be able to break into this, and behind which what they'll do is they'll launch a massive hacking attack on the U.S. and the West. The Islamic State claims to be actively recruiting skilled hackers in a bid to create a team of jihadist computer experts capable of causing devastating cyber disruptions to Western institutions. They are now boasting it is only a matter of time before their plan becomes reality and they hit the financial institution, the power infrastructure, and anything else they'd like to hit. So you can see what they're doing right now. They're building up the case for cyber attacks. They're pushing their agenda, and we can see why they're doing this, because right now it is very difficult for the president, Congress, to say let's go to war and let's bomb Syria. There is no reason whatsoever where they need to get into Syria because Syria has done absolutely nothing to the United States. So they're trying to build this case. They're trying to link Syria with the Islamic State, and they would like an attack to occur. And of course, they'll pin this on Assad. He is part of the terrorist organization, and we can see how this is starting to ramp up. And really, they're starting to cover all bases now, making sure we understand who is coming and who is committing these events. Now, eventually, when this all occurs, we're going to see this happen in multiple stages, and they're going to come out on the news. They're going to know exactly who it is in a matter of hours, and they're going to say their fingerprints are all over it. And of course, it's going to point back to Assad and the Islamic State, which will give them permission to go in there. Now, of course, it could happen in another way, but eventually, they need to do something and have the ability to blame the attacks on Assad, because otherwise, how do they get into Syria? I mean, of course, they can just go ahead and do it, but then the world looking at the United States is going to be sitting there going, they just attacked a sovereign nation for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And the international community is not going to look favorable on this. It's going to be, it's not going to look good for the United States. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.